Prototype D was my attempt to recreate the Eurorack Modular Case.com's design of something they called the golden ratio, which was another really beautiful case design, just too expensive for me to purchase, so I thought I'd just try to build one out of scrap wood again. My take on the design was relatively close, I guess you could say. It wound up being made out of melamine particle board though, and that wound up not being a very good decision on my part because this entire case was super heavy and it was super awkward to try to sit at because the rough edges, the particle board material just kept wedging itself into my flesh. It was not a good material to use for this project. I don't have any of the templates anymore, so I couldn't take any pictures of what that looked like, but just imagine they looked similar to like what the Prototype B looked like. I took some 1/4-inch melamine and edged out what I thought would be a good design and good angles and threw this thing together. The problem with this, as far as the build goes, was when I started screwing everything together, because it was particle board, even though I used pilot holes and countersinks like you're supposed to, it still just split right away. I think it was just because the wood was super old and dry out here in the desert. So it wound up being a complete nightmare to use as a case, but it looked good for a moment. I will say it did look good. Once you started getting modules installed in there, it actually looked okay. With this being 168 HP times 12U, I actually had blank spaces for once. It held every single module I owned as of February of 2022. That was cool, but all that meant was that I just needed to go shopping. Plus, everything looked really cool at night. As far as the actual build, either I didn't film the actual cutting of the boards or I lost the footage in the sea of footage that I've had over the years. So all I have really is to show how I mounted the power supply and the bus boards here. So here's a quick shot at getting the power supply mounted vertically in the back of the case and then building the top rail of bus boards for the top 2 rails of modules. The bottom 2 rails of modules get powered off of a bus board in the bottom of the case, and then I have this one set of bus boards that go across the top in the back to power the top rails. Dry fitting them to see where I might want them, if I want them at an angle or if I want them vertical. I think I went with vertical in the end because it was just easier. I also got out my Forstner bits, which I haven't gotten to use in a long time. That was just to pop the hole in the bottom to drill for the power connector. Once I get all the modules into it and I moved it into the living room, this is where I realized this was incredibly heavy, not only with all the modules in there, but the wood itself, 3/4-inch particle board, is very dense and it's super heavy, so I did not enjoy moving this around at all. So most of the time it just kind of sat where it is. But the initial design of it was so that way each one of these rails could fold down forward and I could easily access the back of the modules in case I had to change configurations or swap something out. So that was kind of a neat part of the design, and I'll probably do that again in my final build. Here is the Prototype D with all of his modules. This was probably around March of 2022, so you can see how even quickly this giant rack is filling up as well. Keep in mind I also have a System 100 that is occupying the Behringer Go case right now. And the original Dope for DIY rails were just sitting in their box, not being used by this point, because up until now I still had plenty of room to grow. That sure came to an end right around May of 2022, when we finally reached the end of our prototype journey, and that is with Prototype E. Well, let's go see what that one's all about.